멜로장에서 건져봐 괜히 다른 여자들은 널 망쳐놔 또 망쳐 난 또 널 보러 내게 갈 수밖에 없게 만들어 해 많은 여자들은 날 지나치고 자만할 수밖에 다른 여자들은 널 지나치고 그저 시기할 수밖에 없게
The evening was supposed to be simple, a family dinner, a few laughs, and maybe some light-hearted from my sister Sergey. I hadn't expected to be so nervous, but the moment Sergey announced she was bringing someone special, my heart sank with a mix of dread and curiosity. The doorbell rang, echoing through the house. My parents were already seated in the dining room, and I was tasked with opening the door. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for anything, or so I thought. When I opened the door, my words stopped. There, standing beside Sergey, was Jimin, my ex. The man I hadn't seen in over a year. The man I thought I had moved on from, but clearly hadn't. His eyes widened in recognition, a mix of surprise and something else flickering across his face. It was as if time rewound, and the emotions I had buried so deep began to surface again. "Hi sis," Sergey jerked, completely oblivious to the tension in the air. "This is Jimin, my boyfriend." Jimin's gaze locked onto mine, his expression unreadable, but I could feel the rising to my cheeks. A rush of memories crashing into me like a tidal wave. How was this happening? Of all people, why did it have to be him? "Nice to meet you," Jimin finally said, his voice smooth and familiar, sending a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile. "Nice to meet you, Jimin." Dinner was a blur. I could barely focus on the conversation, my mind racing with questions and emotions I didn't want to confront. Jimin's presence was overwhelming, and the way he occasionally glanced at me when Sergey wasn't looking didn't help. After dinner, I excused myself, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. I slipped outside, the cool night air helping to calm the storm inside me. I stared out into the night, the distant city lights twinkling like stars. It wasn't long before I heard footsteps behind me. "Can we talk?" Jimin's voice was soft, almost pleading. I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. "What is there to talk about, Jimin? You're with my sister now." "I didn't know, I swear. If I had known, I never would have let it get this far," he said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "But it did," I whispered, my voice trembling. "And now what are we supposed to do?" His eyes softened as he took a step closer. "I never stopped thinking about you. I tried to move on, but you're still in my heart. Seeing you again tonight, it just brought everything back." My breath hitched at his words, the sincerity in his voice cutting through my defenses, but I shook my head, trying to stay strong. "This is wrong, Jimin. You're with Sergey now. We can't do this." He reached out, gently taking my hand in his, a jolt of familiarity and longing. I know it's wrong, he said softly, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. It doesn't change the fact that I still love you. Tears welled up in my eyes as I pulled my hand away. We can't hurt her, Jimin. We can't do this to her. He sighed, the weight of the situation on both of us. I don't want to hurt her or you, but I can't just pretend these feelings exist. Days passed and I tried my best to avoid Jimin, but it was impossible. Sergey was thrilled about her new relationship and insisted on spending as much time with him as possible. Every time I saw them together, a pang of jealousy and regret twisted in my chest. I found myself alone more often, retreating to my room or going for long walks just to clear my head. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the memories of Jimin and me. How good we were together, how much I had loved him. One evening, after another painfully awkward dinner with Sergey and Jimin, I escaped to my room, hoping for some solitude. I stared out of the window, admiring the view, unlike anything I'd seen before. The city lights glowed in the distance, a reminder of how small and insignificant my problems should be. But they weren't, they were all-consuming. Suddenly, I felt two strong arms wrapped around my waist. I gasped at the feeling of cold rings on my Jimin's rings, the same ones he always wore. My breath hitched as he pulled me closer. "Come back to me, love," he whispered, his voice low and filled with longing, sending a shiver through me. I hummed at the feeling, my resolve crumbling under his. "This is wrong," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. He sighed against my. "I know, but it just feels so right, doesn't it?" I turned in his arms, facing him. His eyes were dark with the same look that always made me weak. "This isn't happening again," I said, trying to sound firm. But Jimin only smirked, his confidence unwavering. "You said that last time." Before I could respond, he captured within me that I had tried so hard to extinguish. I melted into him, the world around us disappearing as I gave in to the overwhelming passion that had never truly left. We stumbled back toward the that had been building for far too long. The sheets were cool against, growing more intense. "This is the last time," I murmured against, even though I knew it was a lie. I didn't want it to be the last time. I wanted him, needed him, more than I could admit. He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. "I don't want it to be the last time," he whispered, his voice with emotion. "I don't want to let you go again." I closed my eyes, my heart aching with the weight of our situation. "We'll figure it out," I said, not knowing if I truly believed it. "But right now..." And he did. The world outside ceased to exist as we lost ourselves in each other, in the passion and the love that had never really gone away. But as much as I wanted to stay in that moment forever, I knew it couldn't last. There were decisions to be made, hearts that would be broken, and a future that was far from certain. But for now, I let myself be with Jimin, if only for a little while longer. The next morning, I woke up to the warmth of Jimin's beside me. The early light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like we were the only two people in the world. But reality quickly crept in, the weight of what we'd done pressing heavily on my chest. I carefully slipped out of bed, trying not to wake Jimin. My heart raced as I dressed, the guilt gnawing at me. How could I have let this happen? How could I have betrayed my sister like this? As I reached for the door, I heard Jimin stir. "Leaving already?" His voice was, but there was a hint of sadness in it. I turned to face him, my heart aching at the sight of him, his hair tousled, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "I have to," I whispered. "We have to talk to Selgi." His expression darkened as he sat up, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but how do we even begin to explain this to her?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But we have to be honest. She deserved that much." Jimin nodded, the weight of our situation hanging heavy in the air. "I'll talk to her. I'll tell her everything." Tears welling up in my eyes. "I'll be there to be of it to her, to face this together." Jimin reached out, gently cupping my cheek. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that I still love you. I'll always love you." I leaned into his, my heart breaking at the thought of what was to come. "I love you too, Jimin, but we have to do the right thing." We spent the rest of the morning in silence, both of us lost in our thoughts. The fear of what was to come loomed over us, but there was no avoiding it now. When Selgi arrived later that day, she was her usual cheerful self, completely unaware of the storm brewing. Jimin and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing that now was the time. "Selgi, can we talk?" Jimin began, his voice tense. Selgi's smile faltered, her brow furrowing in concern. "Sure, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "There's something we need to tell you."
If love can make you scared, then I think you'll never want it. If all my friends were here, they'd be saying shit's ironic, cause all my love is gone and I can't stay awake in the night. The light